Time for some PC hardware news, and let's start with the fact that your GTX 10 series or AMD RX 5000 series GPU might just be out of luck when it comes to playing Alan Wake 2. Not just bad frame rates, but possibly not supported at all. What is going on with headlines like this? Well, basically it comes down to mesh shaders. So mesh shaders were added into DirectX 12 Ultimate, I believe in 2020, and GPUs need hardware support for this feature. So if a game was programmed with mesh shaders in mind and did not have any sort of alternative way for things to work, then GPUs like NVIDIA's 10 series and AMD's 5000 series and earlier would not be able to run the game at all. Now, it's important to note that the articles written based on this are referencing a tweet that has been deleted. But this was from a developer of the game. This is Alan Wake 2. And I've already talked about these system requirements, and we'll even talk a little bit more about them here. Basically, the system requirements look pretty crazy. But then we were also added in some more details, which is usually if you look at a system requirements list, you can say, okay, well, my GPU is similar to this one in the list, so I'll get similar to performance to what they're claiming. Well, the developer was chiming in by saying slight precision that doesn't appear here, referencing the system requirements, that the 10 series from NVIDIA and 5000 series from AMD series cards doesn't appear because only cards with mesh shaders are officially supported. Now, he did go ahead and add in by saying, I'm not sure it will run without it. In theory, the vertex shader path is implemented, but has lots of performance issues and bugs. We just dropped it, meaning it might be possible to bring it back with a mod, but don't expect miracles. Saying all this because if some player out there thinking their RX 5700 XT can handle it because it's in the same ballpark as a 6600, don't be surprised or sad. Now, this tweet was deleted, so it's possible that maybe there's some error here, but again, this was a game developer basically saying, if you don't have a new GPU, AMD 6000 series or NVIDIA 20 series or later, I believe the 16 series might have had, I think the 16 series did have mesh shader support. So I think it would be 16 series or newer. You might just be completely out of luck. I'd also be curious if we're gonna see any other games like this where it's just mesh shaders or bust. At least anytime soon, I don't know. Remember, Alan Wake 2 is developed on an engine, that's custom for this game. A lot of developers use a big engine like Unreal Engine, that they're licensing the use of, whereas this developer does make their own engine. So maybe this will just be an issue we're running into with them. And again, the tweet was deleted, so maybe there's some other info there. However, let's follow up with this even more. Even if you assume that all of those GPUs will be able to run the game, despite the mesh shader issue, we're seeing headlines that Alan Wake 2 will run at native 1080p high settings, no ray tracing, only for around 7% of all PC players. However, I did dig into what they're referencing here, which was this image posted to Reddit. Now, in this image, they're basically going off of the system requirements list, which I've already done a whole video on, where they're basically saying, okay, well, if you take the DLSS /FSR2 rendering resolution, and then you adjust their output resolution to be the actual internal rendering resolution that would be, then you're making the claim that that's that resolution. Now, we actually need to be really careful about this, okay? Because, let me put it this way. So this 1080p claim is based on this. Running the game at DLSS performance is an internal rendering resolution of 1080p if you are outputting to 4K resolution. The GPUs listed here are the RTX 4070 and the RX 7800 XT. And then, based on that, they looking at Steam Hardware Survey, they make this claim that basically you look at cards that are 4070 or 7800 XT class or better, rule out all the ones that are worse, and that leaves only 7.15% of GPUs able to do this. However, here's the problem with this claim. Just because the internal rendering resolution is 1080p does not mean the performance is the same as playing the game at a native 1080p output. The upscaling process, both DLSS and FSR2, has a frame time cost, a performance cost itself. So it's a little bit disingenuous to make this claim. Yes, it's rendering the game at 1080p, but then it does have compute time to then upscale the image to a 4K output. So if you didn't have to do that upscaling step, you would then get back some performance, and then some lower GPUs would then be in the same ballpark. That's the only detail there. However, by no means take this as me saying that these system requirements are anything other than absolutely crazy demanding. And is that a bad thing? Well, I'm just gonna say that if this is the claim, because again, that's without ray tracing, this game better be the next Crysis, right? This better be a actual massive generational leap forward in visual quality, or maybe these system requirements are just wrong. But between this, as well as the possibility that they are just leaving behind 10 series and 5000 series and earlier GPUs, they're certainly making a statement here with what they're claiming for what they'll support. So like I said, I really hope the visuals absolutely justify it and that we're in for something truly special. We'll have to see. The other game I've talked about recently with some pretty crazy demanding early benchmark / system requirements is City Skylines 2. And that releases today, and my planned video today was actually originally to benchmark this. However, City Planner Plays, who had early review access to the game, has already done an extremely extensive benchmark of this, making me feel more like I'm just gonna point you to this. All my sources today will be in the video description. And not only does he have the video that gives full context on how he tested it, and like what the test scene was, all of that, as well as how to interpret the results. Also in the video description, there's a link to a Google Doc with all of the results. And basically you can, and it's filtered by CPU as well as then showing the GPU results at that, the settings the game was tested out, how it felt running, some notes. By the way, the ones in yellow were done on the release patch, which had a small performance update, whereas the older ones he had done before they had released a small performance update. But then you can see both results here. The tab down at the bottom allows, like, these are all the Ryzen 2600 results. And you can see that this CPU, and this is a city with a size of 100K, can never, no matter what GPU you pair it with, can never break beyond the 40s, maybe into the 50s on an RTX 3080 Ti. Here, but basically that's showing CPU limitations on that size of city. He then tests out the RX 3600 CPU with a smaller variety of GPUs, but giving a variety of results going all the way from a 1650, 1660, 2060, 3060 Ti, RX 6800 XT, on a variety of results. And this CPU can never hit 60 FPS, again, regardless of the settings and the GPU tested with. Although it does get, a bit closer. On a Ryzen 5 5600, there are some results on a strong enough GPU, like the RTX 3080 Ti, is able to break into the 70s, but only at 1080p low settings. But again, this is also a kind of game where the... how should I put it? You might not need a super high frame rate. There's also 1% lows, and he discusses all this in the video. He also tested out a 5800X3D on a few different GPUs, showing the overall results there, 7950X3D as well, where here with this, monster of a CPU, gaming CPU, as well as a RTX 4090, we can actually see some results here where the 4090 at 1080p high settings is able to hit over 60 FPS average. Although if you go up to 1440p high, it drops to about 40 frames per second. So, it's pretty crazy demanding, but this is some extensive testing. And again, my sources will be in the video description. Now, another extremely demanding game I'd looked at recently is Lords of the Fallen, and this is an Unreal Engine 5 game. City Skylines 2 is using Unity, and Alan Wake, which we haven't been able to test yet, but all signs point to it being incredibly demanding, again, is on a custom engine. Lords of the Fallen was Unreal Engine 5, and if you're willing to go down to a low enough internal resolution, I was able to get the game playable on a 1060, things like that. Like, it wasn't as bad as what we're seeing from those other two games. Also, the game is apparently selling well and has been getting very frequent patches. But speaking of PC performance and things like that, on consoles, well, on PlayStation 5 at least, we've now seen the release of Spider-Man 2, which is selling well. It's also performing very well, and it can look very good while doing it. So again, my question with all of this again is, are the visuals justifying the performance cost? Because the Spider-Man games that we do have on PC, with Spider-Man Remastered and Miles Morales, they can look and perform very well and are extremely scalable across a variety of hardware. And another game from this developer, Ratchet & Clank, when we got the PC version, again, it looks stunning and is extremely scalable across a variety of hardware. And that's where I'm getting a little bit frustrated, where hopefully, again, Alan Wake 2's visuals will justify the performance cost, but I'm also hoping that, I'm disappointed not see more scalability, right? Because it's one thing to optimize, performance for maximum visuals, but also, can you optimize for a variety of hardware? And that's where it certainly looks like, at least according to the release information we have now, Alan Wake 2 is certainly not seeming to want to optimize for a variety of hardware. And City Skylines 2, we're just seeing it might not look and perform super great, but that is a simulation style game. So maybe that's some explanation on that. But anyway, this is more on the software side of things. How about PC hardware? We are seeing even more rumors about the RTX 4080 Super, this time rumors pointing to 20 gigabytes of VRAM. And we're also seeing more rumors about RTX 4070 Super, this rumor pointing to 16 gigabytes of VRAM and an 8103 GPU. The 4080 rumors are pointing to it being an 8102 GPU. And videocards.com, again, all my sources will be in the video description, has posted a table with the summarized results. I'm gonna shrink myself down really tiny to basically mouse pointer size, and let's look at a few things here. So right now, the 4090 is the only gaming GPU on the 8102 GPU. The RTX 4080 was on the 8103 GPU. So the rumor here is that the 4080 Super would be a cut down 4090. In other words, you'll cut down the 8102 GPU a little bit more, and that gives you the 4080 Super with 20 gigabytes of VRAM, and that would be a rumored 320-bit memory bus. Now, where does the 4070 Super slot into this? This one is, again, if it's rumored at 8103, it would then be kind of a cut down 4080, if that sort of makes sense, at 16 gigabytes on a 256-bit bus. But there's also some rumors that might actually not be the case, and it might be more of a cut down 4070 Ti, but somehow fitting into more of like a 256-bit bus. There have been conflicting rumors on all of this. I will certainly say that I do think the VRAM amounts sound good. If the performance is at least the same or better, I obviously would hope for better, right? So if we get better performance with more VRAM, and if the prices either stay the same or ideally decrease from the 4080 and 4070 Ti at least. Like if we got something that cost less than a 4070 Ti but had 16 gigabytes of VRAM and performed similarly to the 4070 Ti and at a lower price, that would be interesting. Again, but I've seen a lot of conflicting rumors right here, and also Copite7Kimi, who is one of the most well-known and prolific PC hardware, especially GPU, rumor leakers, has responded to this videocards.com article and said, I have some different opinions. I think the relationship between the 2080 Super and the 4080 is similar to that between the 2080 Super and 2080. Now, videocards.com did update their article with that information, and they say that these alleged super variants apparently offer only modest enhancements. The 4080 Super is expected to follow that, the 2080 Super's relationship with the 2080, signifying a minor upgrade that includes full GPU specifications and an increase in memory speed. Meanwhile, the 4070 Super is reported to be a slightly reduced version of the 4070 Ti. So, interesting. We'll have to see what comes out of this. And does this mean that everybody's just guessing? Or it could all be wrong? Does this mean we're actually going to get these cards? Here's my take on all of this. At this point, I think what's probably going on is within NVIDIA, they are testing or at least building up ideas and plans for what a 40 Super series could look like. And that probably includes more than one possibility for each of these GPUs. And that in the coming months, they would then need to finalize a decision on one, are they going to do this at all? And number two, what would the final decision be on those cards if we did decide on doing that, right? If NVIDIA did decide on doing that. So basically, I think it's possible that all these rumors are based on the ideas being basically spitballed around at NVIDIA, and one of them will either be chosen or the whole line will just be decided to, let's just not do a Super series. Now, when do I think these would come out if they do end up coming out? My guess would be that an announcement in January at I think that's when CES is, right? CES is in January. That kind of event makes sense for this type of announcement within a release coming, within a month of that. So I think if we did get these, it would probably be early 2024, with that type of an announcement. But again, that's if this even ends up happening, and I'm just guessing on that release date. In the meantime, why do I think a 4080 Super is extremely likely? I think a 4080 Super is extremely likely. Why? Same reason that Tom's Hardware put in their title. Might have special appeal in China, where RTX 4090 is about to be sanctioned. So, remember, as I reported earlier, due to a US export ban, RTX 4090s will be hard to get in China. We're seeing this videocards.com article reporting that prices of them are doubling in China already. And so if you can't ship 4090s, what if you shipped 4080 Supers that were slightly cut down 4090s? If that gets around this restriction, I don't know the details on the restriction, exactly how the legal wording is. But basically, if anything below a 4090 is allowable, well, maybe we just make something that's almost but not quite a 4090 and release that. Question, but that to me would make a whole lot of sense for NVIDIA to do from a business standpoint. Anyway, let's move on to AMD. AMD has had some really bad times with their the VAC bans for using Anti-Lag Plus. This was most prominently reported in Counter-Strike 2, where we saw that using Anti-Lag Plus, which AMD released in a driver update on their 7000 series GPUs, was detected as a potential cheat through the Valve anti-cheat and was getting players banned. Well, it now looks like, as of October 19th, Valve did add a startup check for incompatible AMD graphics drivers, meaning the graphics driver that allows the Anti-Lag Plus. And they said they'll now reverse VAC bans for, at least begin reversing VAC bans for affected players, and then some other stuff. So that's good. However, the problem with this now is this this was not the only game where people were reporting this issue. So we are going to be hopeful that everybody in every game that was affected will hopefully get matchmaking bans reversed. But then in general, this is just really bad for AMD's reputation. This is a disaster because AMD, for many years, had a reputation for driver problems. And this is really a completely different kind of driver problem, but this problem did happen because of a feature that they released in a driver update and that you activated through their driver software. And it had finally been turning around since AMD's 6000 series. The amount of comments you'd see complaining about or worried about AMD drivers, they were still there, but they were decreasing. It takes years to turn around your reputation for something like this on the internet. And having something like this happen through a driver update, although it's a different kind of issue than just a stability issue, really could set back that kind of reputation a long ways. It takes a long time to live down a major issue like this. And the reputation for releasing things half-baked, unfinished, and not fully thought out. So this has been a very big problem, and I think will continue to be for years because of the reputation damage, even if we do eventually get all of the players, get their bans reversed. So many PC players are really competitive gamers who focus on one game, and if they lose access to that one game, it's basically destroyed their hobby, right? And they are very unlikely to forgive something like that from happening. Now, in other AMD news, AMD China is apparently going to experience massive downsizing in their Radeon technology group, their GPU division being affected the most. This is a WCCF Tech article, but reporting the news coming from a Chinese media outlet, icsmart.cn, where they're citing an individual within the company's social platform. Now, I have no idea what to make of the credibility of that, but they're disclosing a layoff figure around 450 employees, with most of them coming from the Radeon Technology Group. And again, this is the Chinese branch, so things not looking good there. Apparently, it's responding to a revenue decline. In maybe better, or at least neutral news, AMD is releasing laptops with the RX 7900M high-end Navi 31 mobile GPU. These are out now, although the laptops are very expensive with the $2,800 price tag, and there are limited models available. In other AMD laptop news, we're seeing rumors, this is not official, that AMD is readying a lower clocked Ryzen 9 7940HX and Ryzen 7 7840HX Dragon Range laptop CPUs. This is again WCCF Tech, but this time they're getting their information from Golden Pig Upgrade, who has leaked hardware stuff like this accurately in the past. So take that for what it is. Anyway, we also have this news. Now, this is interesting. Apparently, Nvidia and AMD are planning to launch ARM-based CPUs for PCs, Windows PCs, to tackle Intel and Apple by 2025. Now, it's my understanding that Qualcomm has had an exclusive deal for launching ARM-based CPUs for Windows with ARM, but I believe that deal expires in 2025, which would explain why AMD and Nvidia would be interested in taking this up. And, you know, that would be a good thing for them if that becomes a market. You know, Apple's completely switched over that. Smartphones are on ARM, right? So, like, are we, you know, what if x86 did sort of get phased out eventually by ARM, right? It would make sense for NVIDIA and AMD to be there ready to go with that. So anyway, apparently looks like they're ramping up that production. This original report, I think, coming from Reuters, although, and they're citing their own sources within NVIDIA and others. Now, in terms of cooler model news, we are seeing images of an RTX 4060 Ti 16GB GPU with a single slot blower fan design. Now, it's my understanding that NVIDIA frowns upon or possibly outright bans blower design cards on their gaming GPUs because it might eat into their Pro line, which has massive markups. I've always thought, and I've said in my videos, that the 4060 Ti 16GB doesn't make a lot of sense as a gaming GPU at its release price, and it has come down a bit, but still, it made a lot more sense as for productivity applications that require a lot of VRAM and run best on NVIDIA. That could be certain AI workloads, things like that, and others. So this particular card in a single slot blower fan design, which would allow you to fit a whole bunch of them into the same PC with the blower slot design, could actually be very interesting. But this is not fully released yet. We're just seeing images of it. So anyway, interesting to see where that goes. In other GPU cooler news, Max Sun has launched an RTX 4090 Mega Gamer at basically $2,000. This has 5 fans, the 3 normal ones, and then additionally, there's a little fan here and here. Now, they've already done this for the RTX 4080, and Gamers Nexus actually tore one down and reviewed it. And while they found that it was actually a well-built card and cooler, they didn't find that these little gimmick 2 extra fans really did much, other than making it now marketable as having 5 fans. But anyway, other than that, though, the 4080 version did get a good, I think, review from Gamers Nexus, if I'm remembering the video correctly. Looks like ASL is launching an RTX 4060 with a spirit level. So if 5 fan gimmick isn't enough for you, how about instead we put a level, literally like a bubble level, right? So to see if there's sag on your GPU. Interesting. Now, it's my understanding that ASL, and maybe it says it in this article, yeah, ASL, I believe, exclusively distributes to China. So if you're not in the Chinese market, then you can't get your hands on this particular little gimmick. But hey, that's kind of interesting at least. And now RTX, AFox has launched an RTX 4070 graphics card, which is its second RTX 40 model GPU. You might not recognize AFox. Again, it's only their second RTX 40 GPU. And also, what's going on with them? My understanding is that they primarily just released to system integrators. These aren't cards that you'd really be buying on the do-it-yourself market. Now, moving on to CPU news, we're seeing that maybe Intel's 14th gen, as I've covered previously, really is just the 13th gen all over again with a different name. However, maybe getting a free game bundled in with it would sweeten the deal. If you're interested in Ghostrunner 2, now I played the first Ghostrunner and I didn't beat it, but I played it a bit, and I honestly, I wanted to beat it, I just kind of got sidetracked. I really enjoyed the first Ghostrunner. It had some pretty interesting gameplay. Ghostrunner 2 is being bundled with the 14th gen Core CPUs. Currently, it's exclusive to Newegg, although it's unclear if it will continue to be exclusive to Newegg. So anyway, interesting stuff. It looks like the qualifying CPUs are the 14600K KF, 14700K and KF, and 14900K and KF. And we've got some dates and all of that. It looks like basically October 16th running through January 15th. So at least that might sweeten the deal if you were otherwise uninterested in getting a 14th gen CPU. Now, if you're interested in Intel's next actual generation of CPU, Meteor Lake is the next actual new architecture, although my understanding is it will be mobile chips only. In Intel's, somebody at Intel was quoted as saying it would come to desktop, but the clarification on that was that that would be like all-in-one desktops using mobile chips that are usually used on laptops. Now, one interesting thing we've seen leak out here is apparently a gaming handheld using this Meteor Lake H chip. Now that's kind of interesting in that most of, although not all, of the little gaming handheld PCs are usually using AMD APUs. So it'll be interesting to see if Intel's graphics will be able to deliver similar or better performance, and if Meteor Lake will improve the power consumption issues that like the 14th gen Intel are definitely showing, and that kind of thing. In other news, Intel's PresentMon, which I have used on the channel a bit to look at things like GPU busy, and does make a nice looking performance overlay that you guys might be interested in playing around with, has reached version 0.6, which now makes it go open source, and has some updates to what version 0.6 has brought to the table. In monitor news, Alienware is teasing 32-inch 4K 240Hz OLED monitors, as well as 27-inch 1440p 360 hertz QD-OLED monitors, and these coming in early 2024. Personally, I am interested in, I've got an LG C1 OLED that is 4K resolution, and it's 120 hertz, and it's 48 inches, which is pretty big to use on my desk. I am fairly interested in updating to an OLED monitor that's 32-inch 4K and 240 hertz to see how that compares. I also have the ultra-wide 1440p OLED, Alienware, which I really like a lot. But hey, 360 hertz coming in at normal 1440p. I'm interested to see how OLED monitor space expands and if the prices come down at all as more and more monitors and sizes become available. Usually, the newer a tech is, the more price, expensive it is. And the last thing I'll leave you guys with is we figured out where Raja Koduri ended up. So Raja Koduri used to work for AMD and then switched over to Intel and was the leadership behind Intel's Arc GPU development and launch, but then recently left Intel. Where did he end up? Well, it looks like he ended up at Mahira AI, which will be licensing Intel's abandoned Project Endgame. Now, this isn't that interesting to most of my audience because, again, I report on gaming stuff. But I thought, hey, let's follow up on where did Raja Koduri end up. And my understanding is that Project Endgame had to do with compute power stuff. It's definitely a big data productivity thing. That's not my area of expertise. So anyway, there's that. Hope you guys found the video interesting and or useful. And are you interested in Alan Wake benchmarks on Friday? I mean, the game comes out Friday. It would probably take me at least a day or two to actually get the benchmarking done. Interested? Let me know, and I hope all of you have an excellent day.